Did a man at the pinnacle of power ever abandon his armored convoy to meet a stranger on a cold Moscow night? What if that single, unexpected handshake could rip the veil from a nation's most guarded secrets, shaking the very foundations of the state? The night air hung heavy over a gleaming tech park on the outskirts of Moscow. A black sedan eased to a stop, its doors opening as if the pavement itself expected the next steps. A tall figure emerged, shoulders rigid, back straight from years of endless meetings. His forehead, usually smooth, bore the strain of recent crises. Thin, restless fingers brushed the dark lapel of his suit, not for show but to confirm his own presence. Around him, reporters, officials, young engineers, and security formed a low rumble of voices, a hive-like buzz that barely reached his ears. He did not stare coldly at the cameras, his eyes, though bright, carried a faint weariness, constantly calculating, forecasting. A spark of surprise flashed. He turned. Amid the cordoned crowd of tired faces and shopping bags, one pair of eyes met his, old, familiar, out of place beneath the spotlights. A man in his 60s, slightly hunched, silver at the temples, wore a worn jacket, scuffed shoes, and an honest, childlike smile. "San," the older voice trembled. Security stiffened, hands reaching for radios. Yet the minister lifted a simple hand, a silent signal, and the bustle halted. He stepped forward, his voice barely a whisper, while the crowd murmured, a press secretary urging haste. For a heartbeat, cameras, officials, the clock, all vanished. Only the forgotten friend stood there. A ghost from a cramped courtyard where they once shared bread, mischief, dreams, and fights. A genuine smile cracked the minister's formal mask, warmth piercing his stern facade. Andrew, the friend breathed, a name that echoed years of separation, diverging paths. One had ruled a country, the other survived ordinary days, driving a minibus through morning jams, mourning a lost spouse, raising grandchildren. Their worlds collided. The minister's laugh rang free, unburdened by protocol. He reached out, then embraced tightly, shattering every rule, every guard. Security hesitated, cameras flickered, assistants lost their rhythm, but none intervened. The moment felt raw, sudden, undeniably real. "Come with me," he whispered, stepping away from the flashing lights, into the night's ordinary darkness. They walked side by side down the boulevard, untouched by the steel breath of the state that usually followed his every step. No president, no minister, just a man walking with his childhood companion. The street smelled of damp concrete and distant rain. Their footsteps echoed, a steady rhythm that drowned out the distant hum of traffic. The older man's shoulders relaxed, his eyes brightening as if the boy they once were reappeared, running through a schoolyard with a piece of bread clenched in his fist. "Remember the time we tried to launch a makeshift rocket on the playground?" he asked, a grin tugging at his lips. The minister laughed, the sound raw and liberating. "We said it would fly straight into the neighbor's yard," he replied, remembering the mud-splattered shoes and the thrill of impossible dreams. They passed a modest cafe, its door ajar, the scent of fresh bread drifting out. The minister pushed it open with a decisive gesture, shedding his coat onto the back of a chair. Inside, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes placed a kettle of steaming water and 2 mugs on the table. No cameras, no scripts, just tea. He slipped his jacket over the back of the chair, feeling the soft fabric against his skin. "Do you ever wonder," the older friend began, "what might have been if we hadn't taken different roads?" The minister's gaze drifted to the dim light, his voice low. "Sometimes I think, what if I had stayed in the school, taught history, tended a garden? Would I still be here, breathing the same night air?" The words hung between them, a fragile thread of possibility. Outside, a car passed, its tires humming against the wet asphalt. The city seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next unexpected turn. The two friends sat, sipping tea, the steam curling like memories rising from the past. In that simple, unguarded moment, a man who held a nation's defense found a glimpse of freedom, and the night's mystery deepened, leaving the question lingering, what will happen when power finally lets go of its armor? A shocking revelation unfolded just moments ago. In the dead of night, Russia's Minister of Defense, Andrew Belausev, found himself in a situation that could change everything. No one could have anticipated that a man of his stature would engage in an act capable of shaking the nation. Stay tuned as we unravel this astonishing tale. Andrei emerged from the sleek black vehicle, stepping onto the pavement with a grace that suggested even the ground beneath him knew his every move. Tall, with a posture honed by years behind desks and podiums, he embodied a mix of poise and weariness. A stern expression occupied his normally unwrinkled forehead, betraying the strain of recent months. His slender fingers fidgeted with the dark lapel of his suit, a subconscious act of grounding himself in reality. Outside the new tech park in the Moscow region, a swarm of reporters, officials, and eager young engineers buzzed like a hive. Their murmurs blended into a cacophony, but Andrei perceived it as a distant hum through glass. The usual cool detachment he wielded in front of cameras and protocols was absent, replaced with a weariness that hinted at a deeper computation unfolding in his mind. Suddenly, he noticed a familiar face within the crowd, a random gathering of simple expressions, worn jackets, and hands gripping bags from nearby stores. Among them was a man of about 60, slightly hunched, with graying hair at his temples, and eyes that held more stories than words. A genuine smile emerged, not the forced kind typically seen in public. "Kola," the man's voice trembled, breaking through the noise. Instantly, security turned alert, one agent stepped forward, while another reached for his radio. Yet, Andrei raised a hand, a simple gesture that brought the world to a stop. He moved closer, almost unconsciously, and murmured, "How long has it been?" almost as if his breath was a whisper shared between the two. While the crowd fussed, Andrei wasn't aware of the cameras, the officials, or the ticking clock. There was only this man, old friend, phantom from the past, someone with whom he had once shared bread and mischief. A real human connection carved through the austere facade he presented. A smile flickered on Belausev's face, a deviation from his usual professional mask, transforming into something profoundly human. The warmth of nostalgia pierced through his calm exterior, catching the attention of the journalists who fell momentarily silent, bewildered by the unfolding scene. "Andrei, is that really you?" Kola's simple words held an entire saga within them, years apart, diverging paths, and fates that had unfolded differently. One shaped the trajectory of a nation, the other endured the monotony of everyday life, a mix of bus routes, grief over a lost wife, and the weighty responsibility of raising grandchildren. Two worlds converged unexpectedly. A broader grin spread across Belausev's face, almost surpassing restrained laughter. "Kola, we haven't seen each other in forever." He extended a hand and then closed the distance with an embracing hug. It sliced through bureaucratic formalities, crossed over the layers of security, leaving everyone startled by the authenticity of the moment. "What are we doing?" he softly prompted, as if time itself appeared irrelevant. They began walking, side by side along the busy street, ignoring their bewildered entourage. For the first time in years, Andrei felt liberated from the suffocating presence of the system. He was no longer a minister, just a man rediscovering a piece of his past. In the previous part, the two old friends, Andrei and Kolya, walked side by side along the boulevard. For the first time in years, Andrei felt free from the oppressive gaze of authority. He was simply a man, not a minister, and this moment felt far more important than any protocol. Kolya stumbled slightly, almost unable to believe what was happening was real. His shoes squeaked against the pavement, yet his gaze remained fixed on Andrei, whom he remembered as the boy from the 6th grade who once defended him at the club, resulting in a cut above his eye that he proudly showed off to the girls. "You haven't changed a bit," Kolya managed to say, attempting to mask the tremor in his voice. "Except for the suit and your eyes, of course." "Do you really think eyes can remain the same?" Andrei replied, a faint smile crossing his lips. "They carry all our joys, and our exhaustion." They paused at a modest cafe where the warm scent of fresh bread wafted through the slightly ajar door. With a sudden sense of determination, Andrei pushed the door open. Inside the tiny space, a few flimsy tables crowded together, and a girl behind the counter, her hair tied back, looked at them without surprise or fear. She simply placed a teapot and a couple of cups on their table. "Now this is what I like," Andrei chuckled as he took off his jacket and hung it on the back of his chair. "No formalities, no journalists, just tea." Kolya took a seat across from him, his hands trembling as he poured hot water into his cup. "You know, Andryusha," he started hesitantly. "I never thought I'd see you like this, not on television or in any poster." Andrei held his gaze, the weight of the years without power hanging heavily between them. In that moment, he felt like a man shedding the role he had played for too long, allowing himself to simply exist. "I often wonder, Kolya," he said softly, "what if we hadn't parted ways? What if I had stayed in school, taught history or economics, lived in the same neighborhood with a dog and a garden? Maybe we wouldn't have to wait 40 years between meetings." Kolya chuckled, yet a shadow crossed his face. "I don't know, life is like a chessboard. One wrong move and the whole game shifts. My wife passed away, and now I'm raising the grandkids. I drive a bus and navigate the routes, yet somehow, I keep living because someone has to be there." His words lingered in the quiet cafe, echoing the complex tapestry of their lives, filled with dreams and disappointments. A shocking reunion, the night that changed everything in the heart of the bustling metropolis. Two lives were about to converge in a way no one could foresee. A few moments ago, a news flash rattled the air. Russia's defense minister, Andrew Belausev, found himself at a crossroads, a decision that could ripple across the nation. This is the story of an unexpected encounter that would challenge everything he knew. Emerging from a sleek black car, Andrei stepped onto the asphalt like he owned the very ground beneath his feet. Tall and composed, he juxtaposed an air of authority with an underlying weariness etched into the creases of his forehead. Today, that familiar stoic expression was clouded by the weight of recent events. As he scanned the gathered crowd of reporters, officials, and young engineers at the tech park in suburban Moscow, a sudden spark lit his eyes, a flicker of recognition amidst the chaos. Moving through the throng, a face emerged from the crowd that stopped him in his tracks. A man in his 60s, slightly hunched, bearing gray temples and a thoughtful gaze filled with the stories of a life lived. It was Kolya, an old friend, the specter of their shared past now standing before him, bold and unexpected. "San." Kolya's voice trembled, breaking the tension. The security detail shifted nervously at the sound, but Andrei raised his hand, just one motion that halted everything. In that moment, nothing mattered but the old friendship that had survived the passage of time and the barriers of status. Andrei stepped forward, a warmth spreading across his features as he recognized a connection that transcended their current realities. "Kolya, we haven't seen each other in ages." His voice, once authoritative, was now soft and genuine, flooded with nostalgia. "There's so much to catch up on," Kolya replied, an innocent grin lighting his face, like a child revisiting forgotten games. Memories rushed back, laughter echoed, and innocent dreams floated up like bubbles in the air. Could it be that time had stood still for them? As they walked side by side, each step was charged with a mix of disbelief and joy. Andrei left behind the shadows of his power. Kolya's heart raced with every word spoken, revealing a life marked by loss but still filled with the simple joys of survival. "Life feels like a chess game," Kolya mused, his voice low, infused with wisdom. "One wrong move, and everything shifts." The silence enveloped them, their thoughts drifting through memories as heavy as the scent of fresh bread wafting through a nearby cafe. Eager to savor a moment of normalcy, Andrei suggested, "Let's just go, wherever the roads take us." Leaving the constraints behind, the two men ventured into the evening, a night ripe with promise. Streets buzzed with an energy that felt almost tangible, as though the city recognized the rarity of their reunion, old friends lost and now reclaimed beneath the fading daylight. With every corner turned, a forgotten chapter of life unfolded anew. Suddenly, Kolya brought up the past, their youthful dreams of building rockets and the innocent rivalry of who could dream bigger. "Remember that rain-soaked day when we argued about the rocket that would reach not just the stars, but our backyard?" he chuckled. As they recalled the carefree moments of their youth, the burden of time began to dissolve, leaving only the laughter and realization that it was their friendship that had escaped the years, the true treasure of their shared history. Again, they exchanged glances that bridged the gap of decades, both humbled by the journey that had led them back to this moment. Would they dare to unearth an old dream and breathe life back into the memories they once held dear? Would their re-established bond spark a resurgence of youthful ambition and wonder? Continue to join us in a breathtaking saga of friendship, choices, and the enduring power of human connection. What happens next could forever change the way you view everything. Stay tuned as the story unfolds in ways you could never anticipate. A fleeting memory sparked within Andrei as he felt the weight of time lift, turning him momentarily into a carefree boy running across the schoolyard, bread clutched in his hand. Remember that day on the sports field when we got stuck after class? Kolya began, a grin forming on his face. Rain poured down, forcing everyone to scatter, yet the two of them remained, sheltered under an awning, deep in debate over who would build the first rocket. Andrei chuckled, a spark igniting in his chest. The laughter was a melody from their youth, and it struck him then, this laughter was a reminder of something he had lost. It was freedom. He looked at Kolya and said, "You know what I fear? It's not about failures. I fear that I might forget who I truly am." In that moment, the flavors of the past swirled around him. The muddy ground beneath, the damp hair sticking to his forehead, that childlike thrill that anything was possible. "You said the rocket wouldn't head to Mars, but straight into the yard." Andrei chuckled, recalling how they had envisioned showing it off to their neighbors. "And you insisted it would fly so far that they'd write about us in the newspapers," he teased. Kolya laughed too. "See, you were right. You're the one they write about now." They paused at an old courtyard where the swings creaked gently in the wind, an unremarkable spot to passers-by but a sacred landmark for these two friends, the birthplace of their shared dreams. Andrei's gaze lingered on the peeling paint of a nearby wall, the dull glow of a streetlight at the entrance, all reminders that time marches on, and nothing remains the same. "Sometimes I wonder," he murmured, "if all this, the positions, the protocols, the paperwork, is it all just a mistake? Should I have stayed here, taught as I once dreamed?" Kolya smirked, but a shadow crossed his features. "A mistake? No, Andrei. You've always gravitated toward challenges. We knew back then, you weren't the type to sit on the sidelines and wait. You took responsibility for everything." Andrei sighed, the weight of those words settling heavily between them like a tolling bell. They continued walking, passing shop windows that reflected two figures, one clad in an expensive suit, the other in a humble jacket. Yet in the reflection, they looked the same, two old men, still young at heart, united by friendship. At a crossroad, Andrei halted, his eyes catching an old snack bar where they once swiped pastries and dashed away from a furious vendor. A smile broke across his face. "Let's go," he said, his voice laced with nostalgia. "I want to taste that pastry again." Inside, the snack bar had changed, plastic chairs, bland lighting, the scent of cheap oil lingering in the air. Still, it felt oddly familiar. The owner, a woman in her 50s with a weary expression, served them a plate of pastries and glasses of tea. "Now this feels right," Andrei remarked as he took a bite. "No meetings, no reports, just a pastry." Kolya laughed, the lightness in his laugh reminiscent of old days, freeing something deep within Andrei. A simple cafe, its plastic chairs and dull lamps evoked a feeling of familiarity for them both. The aroma of cheap oil filled the air as the owner, a woman in her 50s with a heavy gaze, served them a plate of pastries and tea in faceted glasses. "Now this is real," Belausev remarked as he took a bite. "No meetings, no reports, just a pastry." Kolya laughed, his laughter was light and reminiscent of simpler times. In that moment, Andrew realized what had been missing from his life, freedom. He lifted his eyes to his friend and spoke, "Kolya, do you know what I fear? It's not defeat. I fear forgetting who I am." He felt that the pastries, the cafe's ambience, and the scent of cheap oil anchored him more than any government document ever could. As dusk settled over the city, it felt as if the air itself clung to the light, reluctant to yield to darkness. Moscow hummed in the background with distant trams, sporadic shouts from windows, and the screeching of brakes. Yet, in the neighborhood where Belausev and Kolya found themselves, silence reigned. Low buildings with peeling facades, aged trees, and the scent of decaying leaves transformed the scene into something reminiscent of an ordinary provincial courtyard, a place where one could easily vanish from the prying eyes of the outside world. Andrew moved slowly, his stern, always composed figure felt foreign in this setting. Clad in a tailored suit and polished shoes, he looked as if the defense minister had stumbled into someone else's life. But alongside Kolya, he no longer felt like an outsider. "You bear a heavy weight now, Andreyusha," Kolya began. Glancing away, responsible for everything grim, the war, the weapons, the lives. "Does it weigh on you?" Belausev hesitated. He paused at a fence, running his fingers over the cold metal before responding, "It's hard, harder than you can imagine." People think being the defense minister is power, strength, confidence, yet I think daily about the boys I send to places where death looms large. I think of the mothers waiting for calls that may never come. I know any word I speak could become a death sentence. Kolya fell silent, looking at his friend, his eyes filled with more understanding than any analytical report could provide. I remember you as a boy, he finally said. You were the type to leap into a fight for strangers, not just for your own. And now, it was the same spirit, just with greater stakes attached. They continued their walk, turning down an alley that led them to an old pond. The water darkened, reflecting the rare lights that flickered in the distance, a sharp contrast to the emotional weight they carried. Could they reclaim the joy and freedom they once knew in each other's company? Would the echoes of their past come calling again? In their shared silence, two friends sat side by side on a weathered bench, cloaked in the embrace of the night. One was an ordinary man, the other a powerful figure, head of defense for an entire nation. Around them, the city pulsed with life, blissfully unaware of the profound moment unfolding in its depths. Trees rustled softly in the darkness, a door slammed somewhere nearby, and glass tinkled in the night air. In this fleeting moment, they were equals. As they settled into the evening, a layered darkness rolled in over Moscow. It didn't descend abruptly, rather, it crept in, fading the light from upper windows first, then thinning out the rush of cars. Then, like a magician revealing a secret, the true essence of the city emerged, dark, yet undeniably authentic. The creaking of old swings echoed in the distance. Dogs chased after cats, while janitors lazily swept their brooms across the pavement. The world of privilege and control faded as Belausev and Kolya distanced themselves from the prying eyes of aides and journalists. The security detail lingered at a respectful distance, having received a clear message from the minister, stay away. In this newfound freedom, Andrei felt as though he was relearning to walk, rediscovering how to breathe without the weight of authority pressing down on him. You must be accustomed to having everyone around you reporting on every move, Kolya mused, breaking the silence. It's strange to see you without that entourage. Andrei chuckled softly, getting used to it is impossible, my friend. I sometimes feel like an actor trapped in a play that's run for 20 years without an intermission. Same set, same lines, and an audience that already knows the ending. Kolya laughed, but it lacked the humor he usually expressed. But when you're at home, how are you? Rarely myself, Andrei replied, his voice reflective. Even there, work trails me. I sit late at night, open a book, only to realize that I can't read the words. All I see are numbers and graphs. Are you tired? Kolya asked, concern piercing the distance. Very, Andrei admitted earnestly. As they paused outside a quaint shop, the warm aroma of freshly baked bread and crisp apples wafted through the air. Kolya bought 2 simple pastries and handed one to his friend. Andrei took a bite and found the flavor more comforting than any diplomatic conversation. You know, Kolya, he said thoughtfully, sometimes it feels like all this effort is futile, like my labor is sinking into the sand. Today I signed a decree, and tomorrow it becomes obsolete. Today, I fortified one front, and tomorrow a new struggle emerges. It's like I'm running on a wheel with no escape. With heartfelt honesty, Andrei expressed the weight that pressed upon him as they continued down the darkening street, unaware of what awaited them next. The shadows seemed to swell around them, carrying whispered hints of untold stories and unforeseen encounters. Little did they know, their journey was just beginning. Previously we saw the weight of endless diplomatic battles pressing on the minister, his words echoing the futility of signing orders that become obsolete the next day, defending positions only to watch new fronts open, feeling trapped in a wheel with no exit. A sudden question pierces the night, what if the most powerful man in the country abandons his convoy and walks into the shadows of his own past? Kolya chewed the warm pastry, the crumbs falling like tiny snowflakes onto the bench. He swallowed, then said, you keep running, because you think stopping means the wheel will break. The words landed plain, yet a heat spread through Andrei's chest. They rose and stepped out onto the dimly lit park. Street lamps flickered, casting trembling halos over rusted swings and empty benches. A lone lamp swayed, its bulb trembling in the wind. They chose a bench and sat, the wood sighing under their weight. Remember, Kolya blurted, how we slipped out of class in 8th grade and ran to the stadium. Andrei smiled, the memory flashing like a sudden flash of neon. You wanted to control the field, Kolya laughed, and you said you'd govern a country. Andrei's grin widened, a flash of pride mingling with old sorrow. Back then I spoke with fire, Kolya noted, now your voice trembles with longing. The remark hit the core. Andrei confessed, I thought honesty, smarts, stubbornness would be enough. Now I see even the purest choice shatters lives, the wisest decision wounds someone. Kolya stared, eyes sharp. Do you want a world without pain? I wish, Andrei whispered, but I know it's impossible. Silence settled, broken only by distant laughter of a drunken crowd and the brief roar of passing headlights. The bench felt like a secret hideout for two runaway teens. Andrei lifted his gaze to the sky. Stars hid behind the city glow, one thin point pierced the darkness. He pointed. That tiny star is why we fight, to let even a single light break through. Kolya nodded. You must see it yourself, or you'll spend a lifetime staring downward. Their shared resolve settled like dust on the bench. The night grew colder. Wind rustled through the trees, leaves whispering louder, as if the whole park leaned in. Wood creaked, wanting to speak. Andrei's fingers tapped a faint rhythm on the rail, a quiet drumbeat of contemplation. In that moment, the darkness felt like an ally, not an enemy. The park seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next step. A chilling revelation unfolded just moments ago. At night, the Russian Minister of Defense, Andrew Belausev, found himself in a situation that could change everything. Imagine a man of his stature taking a step that could shock a nation to its core. Stick around as we recount this gripping tale that reveals how a momentary decision can lead to unprecedented consequences and personal revelations that shake one's understanding of power. The night had descended quietly over the city, and a gentle wind rustled the leaves, creating a soothing symphony in the park. As Andrei sat on the creaky bench, lost in thought, his fingers imperceptibly tapped against the worn wood, a subtle expression of the tension he carefully masked even from himself. Kolya, he heard an old voice say, why did you even step into that political meat grinder? You could have been a normal man, an educator, a scholar, or an engineer. You had the brains to choose a simpler life. Andrei turned slowly, his weary gaze meeting Kolya's. Yet, deep within those tired eyes flickered a fire, the same fire that had once ignited countless debates in school, spurring him into action for the sake of justice. I've often asked myself that, Kolya. I think I wanted to change things. Back then, it felt like if not me, then who? I believed I could protect people and act fairly, Andrei confessed. But I learned that the higher you climb, the less freedom you have. Every step feels like walking on thin ice. You're the Minister of Defense now, came Kolya's quiet reply. He held the weight of decisions, lives, and futures in his hands. Exactly, Andrei nodded solemnly. And that's the heaviest burden of all. People think power is about strength. In truth, power is fear, the fear of taking a wrong step, of signing a paper that could end lives. He fell silent, his gaze dropping. Kolya, ever pragmatic, pulled a pack of cheap cigarettes from his pocket, offering one to Andrei. Initially hesitant, Andrei surprised himself by accepting. The flick of a lighter ignited a small flame in the night, and he inhaled the bitter smoke. You never smoked, Kolya remarked, eyebrow raised in astonishment. Seems like I wanted to now, Andrei replied, exhaling the acrid vapor that hung heavily in the chilly air, mingling with the scent of damp earth. It's odd, Kolya mused abruptly, breaking the silence. We always dreamed of being essential. Remember how we played football, striving to carry the team? Now, you're carrying the whole country. That's a colossal weight. A smirk creased Andrei's face. Sometimes, it feels easier to lose a single game than to bear all this, but there's no turning back now. Kolya scrutinized him. Do you regret it? Andrei paused before answering. I do. But not for choosing this path. I regret losing the simple things along the way, like enjoying a morning coffee without thoughts of crises. As the echoes of their conversation lingered, the night around them deepened, rich with unspoken thoughts and shared memories, reminders of the fragile humanity behind the roles they played. Summary of the previous part. Andrei had shared a rare moment with his old friend Kolya, opening up about his regrets over life's simplicity that he lost along the way. The conversation flowed freely, with Andrei admitting that he sometimes felt as if he was carrying a weapon, even in his sleep. It was a truth he had never allowed himself to express before, reflecting on the sheer weight of his responsibilities. The wind carried the aroma of fresh bread from a nearby bakery, marking the start of a new day. In contrast, the towering presence of the state loomed behind Andrei, yet here in this moment, things felt refreshingly uncomplicated. With a soft smile, he stood up. "Let's keep walking," he urged Kolya, feeling a sudden urge to explore. As they strolled along the riverside, the water flowed dark and heavy, mirroring the riot of thoughts in Andrei's head. Street lamps cast long golden reflections upon the surface, creating a tapestry of light that danced in the night. Leaning against the railing, Andrei gazed into the abyss of the water. "Sometimes, it feels like this river understands me better than people do," he mused aloud. "It flows regardless of any command or decree. There's wisdom in simply going on." "Perhaps you're like the river," Kolya observed thoughtfully. "You flow, despite everything." Andrei chuckled softly, avoiding the inner conflict of whether to agree or disagree with such an insight. They lingered by the river, reminiscing about mundane things, school days, neighbors, and a classmate who had aspired to be a musician but ended up working at a factory instead. With each memory, Andrei felt a sense of nostalgia wash over him, a reminder of simplicity and honesty that seemed absent in his current life. As the clock tower struck midnight, Andrei whispered, "You know, Kolya, for the first time in years, I feel alive. Not existing, not acting, just living." This admission hung in the air, raw and honest, more genuine than anything he had uttered in years. Yet, as the magic of the night enveloped them, the city's essence began to morph. Moscow, after midnight, transformed into a different creature, shedding the bustling skin of a metropolis, resembling a weary woman reflecting on the day. But as Andrei stood there, lost in thoughts, a chilling realization pierced the serene moment. What awaited them at the end of this late-night stroll? The calm facade cracked, and a question lingered in the air. Would the peace they had found together withstand the looming shadows of their past? Previously, Andrei confessed that he had been merely acting while his true self lay hidden, as midnight transformed Moscow into a tired woman reflecting on a long day. What if the Minister of Defense, the man who decides who marches and who retreats, abandons his armored convoy for a single night of shadowed alleys, meets the boy who once shared stolen bread, and learns that the fiercest war is the one raging inside his own soul, where honor clashes with longing, and every heartbeat sounds like artillery fire? The streets emptied. Windows darkened. Even the wind slowed, as if whispering, "Rest now, city." Andrew Remyovich and Kolya drifted through the silent avenues like two ghosts granted a rare chance to live beyond the clock. "Remember that night we snuck into the old cinema?" Kolya asked, eyes distant. The screen had shown a grainy black and white battle, soldiers marching into doom with calm faces. "I wondered then how anyone could step toward death so peacefully," Andrei replied. "After that film I first questioned what it meant to be a commander, to hold a word that could send men forward or pull them back." Kolya chuckled, a low grin curling his mouth. "There you go. I swore never to lift a weapon after that movie. Yet you chose the path that led you straight into the heart of the army." Andrei's voice softened. "Back then I called it romance. Now I know its weight. Romance ends the moment the first blood stains the ground." They turned into a narrow lane where a lone lantern flickered, casting a thin circle of gold on the cracked asphalt, like a tiny stage waiting for a monologue. Andrei stepped into the light, feeling the heat of the bulb on his skin. "Sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake and wonder, what if I'm not the man you see? What if another Andrei lives a simple life, never joining the uniform, perhaps happier?" Kolya laid a steady hand on his shoulder. "That version is a story, not reality. Only you exist. If fate handed you this burden, then it must be borne." "And if I fail?" Andrei whispered, voice barely audible. "You always succeeded when we were boys." The certainty in Kolya's tone eased the tremor in the defense minister's eyes for a fleeting heartbeat. They walked onward, arriving at the familiar courtyard where they once chased a ball until darkness swallowed the sky. The swing set stood rusted, its chains creaking softly in the night breeze. Andrei reached out, fingers grazing cold metal. Here it all began, he murmured. We dreamed of endless futures, now reduced to reports, orders, and tally books of loss. The night air carried the scent of damp stone and distant river mist. A cat leapt onto a balcony railing, its tail flicking against a cracked window, while somewhere a plate clinked in a hidden kitchen. Every sound felt like a reminder of home, of a life that still pulsed beneath the armor. Kolya's eyes glimmered, a mix of nostalgia and sorrow. Maybe the real battle is finding the place where those childhood dreams still live, tucked between the rusted swings and the whispering wind. Andrei inhaled deeply, the cool air filling his lungs, and for the first time in years felt the simple rhythm of a heartbeat untethered from decrees. He smiled. A genuine, unguarded curve. Let's chase that feeling, brother. One more night, one more step, away from the cameras and the protocol. Together they vanished into the sleeping city, their silhouettes merging with shadows, leaving behind a world of mandates and a memory of a boy who once believed the sky was the only limit. In a serene courtyard, time seemed to stand still. Two old friends found themselves reminiscing in the tangled embrace of nostalgia. They settled on an old bench, surrounded by the comforting sounds of the night. Somewhere nearby, a cat leaped onto a balcony, and the gentle clinking of dishes echoed like childhood memories. Dmitri ran his fingers along the rusted swings, lost in thought. It all began here, he murmured. Back then, we dreamed of an endless future, believing anything was possible. Now it all boils down to reports, orders, and casualty numbers. The future still exists, Kolya interjected quietly. It just became different. They shared a knowing glance, the dense silence wrapping around them like a heavy cloak. It's tempting sometimes, Dmitri mused, his voice tinged with a yearning for simplicity. To vanish into the countryside, build a home, and keep bees. I really love bees. Their lives revolve around work, order, and a cycle devoid of extra words. Kolya chuckled softly, sounds like you've made up your mind. Deciding is easy, Dmitri replied. Taking the first step is the hard part. An unexpected twinge of seriousness gripped them as they reflected on their lives. Just then, a guard appeared like a shadow from the corner of the courtyard. Dmitry Remyovich, he said quietly, it's time to go back. It's getting late. With a dismissive wave, Dmitri said, take a break, Misha. I'm not a minister right now, just a man. The guard nodded and melted back into the darkness, leaving behind a palpable tension. See? Kolya remarked. Even your security understands that you need this moment. Dmitri smiled, but a flicker of sadness crossed his features. They understand, but it can't last. Tomorrow we'll return with the reports, the meetings. I'll be who I have to be, he told Kolya soberly. Kolya looked at him intently. But tonight, you're who you want to be. Don't miss out on that. Those words wrapped around them like a spell, and they lingered a little longer in the stillness, surrounded by echoes of their shared past. The world outside was bustling, but they felt insulated in their own universe. The clock struck midnight, and the city flickered momentarily, caught in its shadows. Dmitri felt the pace of life, the deadlines, the urgent phone calls, slipping further away with every passing moment. Do you know, Kolya, he began, gazing into the dark sky, I sometimes think all we build are elaborate sets. Everyone plays their role, but at what cost? A deep silence enveloped them as the weight of his words hovered in the air, begging to be answered. The question lingered, trapping their thoughts in a bittersweet reflection. The night stretched on, offering a brief escape from the roles imposed by life. Would they dare to confront their fears, to step outside the confines of their carefully constructed lives? In a world where power plays out like a spectacular performance, the actors often forget their audience. The heavy protocols, urgent calls, and meetings create a rhythm that numbs the senses. Like a soldier caught in the gears of government, the Minister of Defense, Andrew Belausev, begins to question the very essence of his role. You know, Kolya, he muses, glancing at the darkening sky, sometimes I think everything we build is just an elaborate facade where each of us plays our part. His companion, Kolya, smirks as he pops a sunflower seed into his mouth. Maybe that's the point? To act not for an audience but to truly believe in the script? Otherwise, how could we bear it? Andrei nods, understanding the weight behind the words. I used to believe, but now I often wonder, what in? Order? Discipline? The state? Or that I can remain human? Kolya observes him closely. You will always be human, even surrounded by cold commands. You're stubborn, Andrei, but you're not made of stone. Andrei offers a weary smile, yet the strain is evident. They sink into silence, enveloped by the familiar sounds of childhood, rusting swings creaking in the wind, the occasional flap of an old window. Remember that time we burned the neighbor's shed? Kolya recalls, breaking the silence. We thought it was a grand experiment. Half the village ran over, and you stood there arguing it was for science. The laughter that erupts from Andrei is a genuine one, full and alive, echoing through the courtyard, infusing it with a vitality far exceeding any number of official speeches. That day, I realized I could persuade people, he admits, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. Kolya winks, and now you're convincing an entire country. Their chuckles intertwine, strangely free for a minister and his old friend in the stillness of night. However, Kolya's expression soon turns serious. But Andrei, understand this, if you were gone tomorrow, the country would keep moving. Someone else would take your place. Isn't that frightening? We are all replaceable. Andrei nods solemnly. I fear not being replaced, but forgotten. That they'll remember me only as a position, not as a living person. Placing a comforting hand on Andrei's shoulder, Kolya reassures him, no one will forget. I certainly won't. To me, you'll always be that kid who jumped into a fight, even knowing he'd get hurt. As the chill of evening settles around them, a revelation looms. What does it mean to live authentically when surrounded by roles and responsibilities? The echo of laughter fades, leaving a poignant question lingering in the air. Do we perform for ourselves or for the world that watches? In a moment of unexpected vulnerability, Andrei lowered his head. The weight in his chest dissipated as if a heavy stone had been lifted. He and Kolya stood up and made their way to the courtyard exit. A guard was stationed at the corner, visibly anxious but trying to mask it. Andrei nodded, signaling that everything was all right. We'll take a walk, he assured him. The guard hesitated, wanting to say something, but he held back. Stepping onto the street, they were greeted by the tranquil night. Only a few cars passed by on the avenue, while streetlights cast a pale glow over the asphalt. Kolya, Andrei said, his voice tinged with thoughtfulness, do you know what I miss the most? Simple conversations, like this one. Where I don't have to worry about how each word sounds or who might twist it against me. Kolya replied, because dead people don't need conversations. They paused at a kiosk selling tea and coffee to go. Andrei grabbed 2 cups, steam rising into the cold air and warming their hands. What are we drinking to? Andrei asked. To remember that you're not just a minister, Kolya said with a warm smile, but Andrei. They clinked their cups together, reminiscent of when they toasted with lemonade bottles in their distant childhoods. The night seemed to flow on, as if it wanted to grant them a few more hours of freedom. As dawn approached, the city of Moscow seemed to exhale, readying itself for a new day while still lingering in the hazy space of twilight. The first vehicles appeared on the streets, bread trucks, buses, and the occasional taxi. One by one, street lamps flickered off like stars seeming to return to the night. Andrei and Kolya arrived at an old square, once vibrant with school fairs. Now, it was home to a cold, glass shopping center that reflected the early rays of sunlight. Yet on the corner stood a cherished news kiosk, where they had once bought candy and hid wrappers from their teachers. Kolya halted, nostalgia washing over him. It was here that I first understood the world as vast, he said. I picked up a newspaper and saw a map. I realized there were entire countries beyond our neighborhood, and now I've hardly traveled at all. Just a bus route, a house, that's it. As he finished, an unsettling question rose. Would this fleeting moment of connection be enough to hold on to, or would the weight of their pasts consume them once again? The scent of brewing coffee hung thick in the air as they hesitated, poised between the ghosts of their childhood and the relentless present. A heavy silence lingered over the water, a weight both comforting and burdensome. As they strolled along the riverbank, the air crackled with unspoken thoughts. Suddenly, a 10-year-old boy appeared from around the corner, casting a line into the water, his eyes filled with innocent hope. The scene was striking. Look at him, Andrew said, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. This is what real life is. Sitting and waiting, believing that something will bite. Yet here I am, always chasing the clock, making decisions, signing papers without pause. But sometimes, all you need is to wait, Kola replied, his voice gentle yet firm. Andrew paused, pondering the truth in Kola's words. Maybe you're right. The sky brightened gradually, the city awakening from its night-long slumber. The lingering shadows in Andrew's heart felt absurd compared to the bustling life around them. He sensed that he was rediscovering his humanity. Sunlight broke through the gray clouds, painting the rooftops in warm golds, while the scent of fresh bread wafted through the air as shops opened their doors. Children rushed to school, their backpacks bouncing with every step. Yet, for Andrew and Kola, the night still held its grip, echoing in their souls like a soft melody that begged not to be silenced. They reached a small square, where worn benches and uneven tiles spoke of a richer, authentic life. Andrew settled down, elbows resting on his knees, his gaze heavy but not due to fatigue. No, it was the weight of many thoughts jostling for attention, each demanding to be voiced. Kola, he began slowly. Sometimes I think about how many lives slip away unnoticed. In reports, they're just numbers, losses. But behind each number is a mother, a father, children left behind. I should remember their faces, but there are so many, and I fear I'll lose the ability to feel. Kola drew a breath and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. Remember the faces, Andrew. Focus on one story, at least of a soldier. Then, every number will come to life. Taking a cigarette, Andrew lit it, the smoke curling into the cold morning air. Sometimes I fear I've become a machine. Just orders, documents, signatures, then a night like this reminds me I'm still human. Kola smiled, a genuine warmth between them, cutting through the weight of unshared burdens. But could this simplicity truly ease the complexities of their lives? Near them, laughter from children playing in the sand danced through the morning air, a pure and authentic joy that rekindled lost memories. Amidst the chaos of adulthood, could they reclaim that warmth? Would they allow themselves a moment of peace, or would the world's demands pull them back into the fray? And so, they lingered at the crossroads of remembering and forgetting, hearts racing as the day ahead held both promise and uncertainty. In a world where the weight of duty often transforms individuals into faceless machines, a simple moment of connection can shatter the cold facade. Andrew, a high-ranking official, found himself at a crossroads, oscillating between his rigid role and the warm memories of his past. As laughter from children echoed, he felt a wave of nostalgia and humanity wash over him, reminding him that he was still, amidst power and command, very much alive. Sometimes, I fear I'm becoming a machine, Andrew confessed, exhaling a cloud of smoke into the brisk air. His friend Kolyak, with a knowing smile, nodded. The weight of responsibility was heavy, yet Andrew understood that shedding that burden might mean leaving it for someone less equipped to bear it. It's the nights like these that remind me why I carry it at all, he continued, leaning back against the bench, allowing himself a rare moment of stillness. The sounds of the city were a symphony around them, the distant hum of traffic, the rustle of people in pursuit of their obligations, but between Andrew and Kolyak lay a silence that was profound. I'm not afraid of death, he said, eyes shutting briefly against the world. I'm terrified of dying unnoticed, leaving nothing behind but paperwork and empty reports. I want a legacy of living, not just existing. Kolyak's response was as simple as it was profound. You've already created that legacy. Tonight is memory, for both of us. With those words, a warmth spread through Andrew's chest, igniting the flickering flame of hope and understanding. Rising from the bench, they ventured forth into the bustling city. Invigorated by the life swirling around them. The noise of the city enveloped them, yet the tranquility they shared stood firm against the backdrop of urgency. Andrew realized that no matter how many protocols or orders encircled him, there would always be this night, this friend, anchoring him to the essence of his humanity. The story of that night was not about politics or war, it was a narrative of simple truths, the deep emotions, the joys of friendship, and the need for honest conversation. In an encounter that would last but a fleeting moment, Andrew Belausev, a minister of defense, was connected to Kolyak, his childhood friend. In those shared moments, they discovered not just their past, but a reminder that everyone, no matter their station, carries within them the same fears, doubts, and longing for connection they had as children. What does it mean to truly live? In their shared laughter, they found the answer. They learned that to live fully, one must embrace both the burdens of responsibility and the lightness of childhood memories. As the night glowed around them, it guided them back to a simpler, truer version of themselves, two friends rediscovering their shared humanity. As the sun began to rise, illuminating the bustling city, it marked a new beginning for both Andrei and Kolya. In the wake of a night that had forever altered them, Andrei rediscovered his humanity amidst a life filled with responsibilities and pressures. The air was fragrant with fresh bread, and the sounds of children rushing to school filled the silence. Yet in their hearts, shadows of the previous night lingered, a gentle melody they wished to keep alive. They paused at a small park with worn benches and mismatched tiles, a place that held authenticity amidst the chaos of life. Do you ever think about how many lives slip away unnoticed? Andrei pondered aloud, his gaze heavy with thoughts. Each statistic represents a mother, a father, a child. I can't remember their faces anymore, and that frightens me. Kolya sighed, retrieving a pack of cigarettes. Remember one story, at least, Andrei, a soldier's story. Then each number becomes a real person. Andrei lit a cigarette, the smoke curling into the crisp air. Sometimes, I feel like a machine, lost amid orders and paperwork, he admitted. That's why remembering who you are is vital, Kolya reassured him. Their silence was interrupted by laughter from children at a nearby sandbox. The sound cut through the morning air, pure, untainted joy. Andrei watched them, feeling a stirring within. I used to be like that, he murmured. Kolya nodded, but deep down, you're still you. You just bear a heavier burden now. And sometimes I wish I could cast it off, Andrei replied, contemplatively. But if I do, it only passes to someone else, perhaps worse. Kolya offered a sympathetic smile, and they fell into silence again. Nights like that remind me why we carry on, Andrei finally said, leaning back, closing his eyes as the wind brushed through his hair. I'm not afraid of dying, he confessed after a moment. I fear leaving behind just documents and reports. I want a memory that I really existed. Kolya looked at him with sincerity. You've already created memories, Andrei. This night is one for me, for you. Those words warmed Andrei's chest, and they rose to continue their walk. As they strode along, city life stirred around them, cars honked, people rushed past, yet a hush lingered in their hearts, a remnant of the intimacy they'd shared. Andrei realized, no matter how many protocols surrounded him, that cherished night, that friend, would always remain a part of him. This story transcends politics and war, it's a tribute to our shared humanity, our fears, and the simple need for connection. Their fleeting time together proved to hold more truth than countless official speeches. If each person carries their own Kolya, a reminder of their true selves, then one's life is not in vain. Cherish those who are near. Engage in conversation, remember the past, and share your stories. For therein lies life's true meaning. Was the tale just a moment of nostalgia, or did it signify a deeper understanding that could change everything? What if every choice we make reveals not just our future but our hidden selves? As the sun bathed the city in light, could it also shed light on parts of us we kept hidden? A few moments ago, a shocking revelation took place. Late at night, the Russian defense minister, Andrew Remyovich, found himself in a situation that could change everything. No one could have anticipated that someone of his stature would make a move that could shake the nation. Stay tuned as we unravel this gripping tale and discover the details that led to this pivotal moment. As he stepped out of the sleek black vehicle, it was as if the very asphalt beneath his feet anticipated his stride, preparing to absorb his presence. Tall, with a straight spine that bore the weight of years spent at desks and podiums, he looked both composed and weary. Today, his forehead, usually free of unnecessary creases, bore a stern expression that mirrored the tension of recent months. His slender, restless fingers lightly brushed against the dark fabric of his tailored suit, not for effect, but as if checking his own reality. Outside the new tech park in the Moscow region, a buzz of reporters, officials, young engineers, and security personnel clustered together, their voices mingling in a chaotic symphony that echoed like a distant hive. Yet Andrei's perception of this chaotic sound was muted, heard through a glass barrier. In his usually icy gaze, there was an extraordinary flicker of surprise as he scanned the mixed crowd of familiar and foreign faces. He saw an old friend, unexpected, misplaced under the floodlights and lenses. A man in his 60s, slightly hunched, with graying temples and wise, weathered eyes that carried more lived experiences than words. A worn jacket and scuffed shoes spoke of a life diverging far from Andrei's own. Suddenly, amidst the pressing crowd, a shout broke through, "Sonia!" The man's voice trembled with emotion. Instantly, a guard tensed up, ready to intervene, but Andrei raised his hand, a simple gesture that halted the chaos. He stepped forward, breaking through the invisible barrier of protocol. "How have you been?" The words were softly spoken, almost a whisper, yet amidst the crowd's tempest, they reverberated with clarity. His press secretary urged him to move on, the schedule was tight, but in that fleeting moment, nothing else mattered. All that existed was Andrei and this man, a lifelong friend, a ghost of their shared childhood. Andrei's stern mask cracked slightly, revealing a smile that was both a relief and unfamiliar. As he approached, the weight of their shared past surged in warmth, causing the journalists to pause in bewilderment. "Andrei. Is it really you?" The familiar name rolled off his friend's tongue as if to confirm that this moment was real. They exchanged knowing smiles, years apart had braided their paths into stark contrasts. One held power that shaped nations, while the other navigated a life of ordinary struggles. Time had stretched thin, but here, unexpectedly, two worlds collided. "Let's go," Andrei proposed softly, breaking free from the confines of status, veering towards the mundane. They walked alongside the bustling boulevard, ignoring the surprised glances of aides and onlookers. The barriers of authority melted away, revealing two friends. Connected through shared histories, no longer a minister and a common man, but simply Andrei and Coley. As they ambled through the night, a strange quietness enveloped them. The vibrant city seemed to hold its breath, aware that a titan of politics had descended to walk among the people. Andrei embraced this disorientation, no plans, no agendas, just the freedom to be who he was in those fleeting moments. "Hey," Coley spoke as they paused near an old playground, nostalgia mingling with the night air. "Remember when we got caught in the rain after school? We thought we'd fix that old bicycle, but instead, we ended up breaking it even more." Laughter echoed in the dim light, a sound so pure it temporarily erased the weight of their lives. Suddenly, a serious expression crossed Andrei's face. "You know what I fear the most," he said, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "It's not death, it's dying in vain." Coley considered this deeply, nodding, recognizing the depths of his friend's words. "That's not for you to decide," he replied. "Life chooses that for us. But how we live, that's up to you." The air felt heavy with unspoken thoughts as they both fell silent. The city continued its relentless pace, oblivious to the life-altering conversations happening on that weathered bench, one man ordinary, the other holding the weight of a nation. But for this moment, they were just two friends navigating the night's uncertainty, rekindling memories of simpler times. Little did they know, beneath the surface of their nostalgia, a twist awaited that would challenge everything they believed to be true about their lives and choices. How would the night unfold, revealing secrets that lay buried beneath years of separation? Stay tuned. A few moments ago, a shocking revelation sent ripples through the night. The Russian defense minister, Andrew Remyovich, found himself in a life-altering situation. Who would have thought that a man of such high rank could make a choice that might shake the foundations of the nation? Listen closely as we unravel the compelling story that follows. As he emerged from the sleek black car, it felt like the asphalt itself was preparing for his arrival, almost eager to feel his presence. Tall and bearing the burden of years spent at desks and podiums, he appeared both resolute and weary. Today, an unusual tension marred his typically smooth forehead, hinting at the strains of recent months. His slender fingers subtly grazed the fabric of his dark suit, confirming his reality. Outside the new tech park in the Moscow region, a swarm of reporters, officials, eager engineers, and security personnel thrummed together, their voices merging into a chaotic melody that buzzed like a nearby hive. Yet, Andrei perceived this cacophony through a distant haze, muted. He scanned the crowd, feeling an extraordinary flicker of surprise as his gaze landed on a familiar face, an old friend, unexpected and out of place beneath the blazing lights and lenses. The man stood there, around 60 years old, slightly hunched, gray at the temples, his eyes conveying more experience than words could express. His worn jacket and scuffed shoes told a story of life's diverging paths. Suddenly, a shout sliced through the noise, "Sonia!" The voice trembled with emotion, instantly causing a guard to tense. But with a simple hand gesture, Andrei halted the commotion. He stepped forward, breaking the constraints of protocol. "How have you been?" His words, softly spoken, seemed almost a whisper yet rang out clearly in the storm of voices. His press secretary urged him to hurry, time was ticking away, but in that fleeting moment, nothing else mattered. It was just Andrei and this man, an enduring friend from childhood. Andrei's usual mask of sternness cracked, revealing a smile that felt both foreign and liberating. As he closed the distance, the warmth of their shared past surged, momentarily freezing the journalists in their tracks. "Andrei! Is it really you?" his friend's voice echoed, confirming the surreal reality of the moment. They exchanged knowing smiles. Years had etched their lives into contrasting tapestries. One wielded power that shaped countries while the other navigated the quiet struggles of ordinary life. Time, stretched like barely taut string, had forged separate paths, yet now two worlds collided unexpectedly. "Let's go," Andrei suggested softly, abandoning the weight of status to embrace the ordinary. They walked down the bustling boulevard, disregarding the astonished stares of aides and passers-by. The shackles of authority melted away, revealing two friends connected through shared histories, no longer a minister and a common man, but simply Andrei and Coley at that moment. As they strolled through the night, an unusual stillness enveloped them. The vibrant city appeared to hold its breath, acknowledging that a titan of politics had stepped down to stroll among the people. And in those fleeting moments, Andrei embraced a disorientation, free from plans, free from agendas, free to simply be himself. "Hey," Coley spoke as they paused near an old playground, nostalgia dancing in the crisp night air. "Remember when we got caught in the rain after school? We thought that old bike needed fixing, but instead, we broke it even more." Their laughter rang out, pure and unrestrained, echoing through the night, a sound that momentarily lifted the burdens they both bore. A sudden seriousness washed over Andrei's face. "You know what I fear the most?" His voice carried a layer of vulnerability. "It's not death, it's dying in vain." Coley listened intently, nodding, absorbing the gravity of his friend's words. "That's not yours to decide," he replied. "Life makes those choices. But how we live, that's entirely up to you." An unspoken weight filled the air as silence fell between them. The city around them marched on, unaware of the life-altering conversation taking place on that well-worn bench, one man ordinary, the other bearing the weight of a nation. But in this moment, they existed as just two friends, seeking solace in the night, revisiting memories of their simpler youth. Little did they know, hidden beneath the surface of their nostalgia, awaited a twist that would challenge everything they thought they knew about their lives and choices. How would the night unfold, revealing the buried secrets of their past? Stay tuned.